Okay. Okay, a warm welcome to you to the Brixton Triratna Buddhist meditation class. My name is Amra Pushpa, and with me here is my good friend, Lisa, and Emma. And we're moving towards opening things up, but for now we're still just live streaming with a few of us. We have two parts to this evening, as usual. So tonight we'll start with an arriving meditation, and then Lisa's going to talk about the next of the worldly winds. So we've been exploring certain reflections that help us integrate what we do in our everyday lives that also have an effect on our meditation. So these are very helpful reflections that were taught by the Buddha, and I think they're very rich and very helpful. I've felt very inspired by them over the years, and I hope you will find them helpful too. So tonight we're going to be exploring the worldly winds being pushed around by praise and blame. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing Lisa's comments on that. And after that, she'll lead us in a longer meditation. And then just have a very short break, and you're very welcome to join a Zoom discussion room where you can, it can be really helpful to talk about what comes up in meditation, something about making it conscious. So there's a Zoom discussion room. The link's on our web page, and will also be posted again here. And we really hope you'll join our friends who are leading a Zoom discussion about tonight's theme and anything coming up in meditation. So we'll start with an arriving meditation. So just make yourselves comfortable. And also, it'd be really great, whoever is tuning in right now, if you could put your names in the chat so we have more of a connection and know who's with us tonight. So let's take some time to set up and settle. Just really taking in the stillness of our bodies. So we might have been quite active up until this point, but now we're sitting down, allowing our bodies to settle down and entering a place of stillness. And as we're settling down, we might notice the weight of our bodies settling down more towards the cushions or seats and the ground. So just exploring those points of contact, different sensations of pressure there. Getting a sense of the ground beneath us, supporting us. And we'll take a few deep breaths into the belly, and on the out-breath, imagining we're letting go our weight even more into that support, and letting go of any tensions in our bellies on the out-breath. And then breathing normally, just noticing the movement of the breath in the belly, sides, and lower back. And then following the lines of the spine gently upwards into the upper back, Just noticing that movement, the expansion and contraction of the chest area. Maybe subtle movements in the shoulders. And checking that the shoulders are relaxed away from the ears. Our hands supported in our laps or on our thighs. And inviting those hands to let go and relax. Those hands that do so much for us during the day. Just inviting them to rest and relax. And perhaps imagining we're breathing through every finger. Just breathing awareness into our hands, the palms of our hands, the fingers, and then back into the wrists, the lower arms, elbows, upper arms, back up into the shoulders, and then imagining or sensing the movement of the breath in the throat, and following that uplift of the spine to the point where it meets the head. So we're checking that the head, the weight of the head is in balance on top of the spine. We have a sense of a poised and relaxed line from the tailbone up to where the spine meets the head, and then up through the crown of the head, up to the ceiling, perhaps imagining the sky above. And all that vast spaciousness, all that space around us. Just imagining we're breathing that in. And we might want to tuck the chin in ever so slightly to open up the back of the neck. And then take a few moments to explore our faces, where we can hold a lot of the tension and emotion of the day. Just imagining we're exploring the contours of the face, the little muscles around the eyes, the cheeks, the mouth, forehead. Just inviting it all to soften. And the tongue to relax in the mouth. And then bringing awareness to the breath coming in through the nostrils, the mouth area. And then having a sense of the whole of ourselves sitting here, living, breathing. Sense of the whole body breathing. And imagining we're making space for however we are. There's room for that all to be there. And just imagining we're folding that into the kindly touch of the breath. That soothing, relaxing rhythm of the breath. Just sit here, just being with as much of our experience as we can, but with more attention on the breath as it moves through the body. When the mind wanders away, just coming back to the points of contact with the ground. Sense of how we are, and then back to the breath. And then broadening our awareness outwards to the whole of our bodies. Again, sitting here, taking in the surrounding sounds, the spaces we're sitting in, air on our skin, clothing on our skin. And in a moment, I'll ring the bell and just open your eyes in your own time. So now I'm going to turn over to my good friend Lisa.
Thank you, that's lovely. Okay, we'll just have a look to see who's tuning in. So we've got Tom in Hone Hill. Hi Tom. And Nick from Ealing. And Anna from Hone Hill. And James from Camberwell. Then we've got Teresa from Elephant and Castle. And Pam here as well. And also Joe from Tulse Hill. So lovely to see all of you tonight. And yeah, if you're out there and you haven't written in yet, do feel free to do so, and we'll have a look out later as well to give you a shout out. Okay, so Yeah, as Amrapuspa was saying, where the worldly wind that we're on today is praise and blame. And as with the other worldly winds, these are part of the ups and downs of life that we all experience. And, you know, as the Buddha taught, we can't stop these worldly winds from blowing around us. It's just part of being human. We all get them at times. But what we can try and do is learn to respond to them in a more creative way so that, you know, we're not blown so much, of course, by them. They don't take us away so much from the things that are really important to us. So when I was asked if I wanted to give a talk on the worldly winds, I immediately piped up for praise and blame because I think, I mean, all of the winds show up for me, but I think these are the pair that I identify most with as showing up a lot in my experience. And even as I was preparing for this class, it's quite ironic really because I really noticed the winds coming up with me in relation to that and thinking, oh, I really hope I get this right and don't make mistakes. I don't want to let down the other people, you know, I hope they like it. So I suppose, yeah, I'm really offering this from a place of it being really live in my own practice too. And I think this pair of winds is really interesting, really. I think that, like, if we start off with blame, I think that's quite easy to see, like, why that can have a negative effect on us if we get caught up in it. I think if we blame ourselves or other people, you know, we can, like, really get preoccupied by doing feelings of ill will or resentment, and that can, like, really take over our thoughts and, you know, really affect how we relate to ourselves and other people. And if we're blamed from other people too, I think that can have a really strong effect on us and can really like sort of really like sort of affect us, and really it can be something that we really want to avoid. And, you know, as with the other, like normally with the pairs of wind, of like worldly winds, there's one in the pair that we're attracted to, and then the other one that we want to avoid or get rid of. And I think that most of us, like, blame is the one that we do want to get rid of. We don't want to be blamed. And, you know, when that does happen, we can want to conceal it or deflect it, or, you know, if we feel like we're being blamed for something we haven't done, I think it's easy to get caught up in, like, righteous indignation. I certainly find that quite juicy, isn't it? It's like, I could be really, like, fueled up by this isn't fair, you know, and that can really stick with me. And again, can take me away from my day-to-day experience then, and, you know, the opportunity to, like, sort of connect with people in a more meaningful way. But I think as I've been reflecting on this, I think I've understood better, and I've been reading, like, some of the teachings and, like, Vajragupta's, like, really brilliant book on worldly winds, and I think it's given me a greater appreciation than I had of, like, the, like, sort of the subtle effect that praise can have as well on us. And I think praise in itself is really positive. I think it's really nice to be praised. It's really nice to be appreciated for, you know, things that we do, and it's really nice to praise other people too. But I think where the problem sets in is if we, like, sort of chase after praise, or we try and cling on to it, and that can sort of dominate our experience, like, more than the actual thing itself than we're doing. So, you know, I find that, you know, when I get like that, it really changes, like, you know, how I present myself to other people. I can, like, really crave approval. So then I notice that, you know, the aspects I'm showing other people about myself, you know, isn't the whole of myself. I'm presenting this view that I think is more likely to be praised or approved of. So then that's not really being authentic with the other people I'm with then. Well, as well, I think it can also affect I relate to other people. I can notice if I'm in a state where, you know, I'm really looking for praise, then I can sort of be, like, looking out for, you know, what praise other people are getting, even people I'm friends with, and I think, oh, are they going to get praise for this? And that's not great either, because then, you know, resentment can set in if I think they're being, like, more approved of than me, or, like, you know, I can get a bit of envy, and of course that's not how I want to come across either. So I think that's the sort of the flip side of praise, really, that again, it's a good thing in itself, but if we like sort of get too fixed on it or want more of it, then you know that can take us away then for how we want to be. And I think what I've also noticed is just how, like, perceptions of, like, praise and blame from other people, and how that can really affect me too. And I think this come up for me like really strikingly a while back, and it was like with two people I used to work with. And one person I got on well with, they praised me a lot, and so I quite liked like being around them. And then the other person, then they were like quite critical of me and often thought that I had different intentions, and I used to find them like trickier. And I remember once I was at like a meeting, and it was a meeting I was quite responsible for, so I had quite a lot invested in it. And both these people were like 20 minutes late, and the first person that arrived was the person I found a bit trickier. And as soon as they come in, I just noticed myself thinking, oh, that's so unprofessional, they're late, they obviously don't really care about the meeting. And was thinking about that and felt some ill will. And then the other person come in just afterwards, and my reaction to them was, oh, that's so brilliant, they made it, they must have had a really difficult time not to be able to come on time, that's fantastic. And I think it was just so striking, the incongruity, that I thought, what's going on here, isn't it? This is exactly the same instant in itself, it's the same action, and yet my reaction to both is like couldn't be further apart. And I think that really, like, I went back and I reflected on it, and it really helped me see really that it was kind of shaped with them. It was like the person who praised me, I was far more likely to praise, whereas the person who, like, I felt blamed by, then that was my reaction to them really. And I think what's come out like during lockdown and everything, it's just how ready we can be at times when we're feeling under pressure or stress to like sort of judge people we don't even know, like strangers on the tube, and just like seeing things about them, or if they're not wearing masks, or we think they're not following the rules, and how quick we can be sometimes to blame them when actually we don't know anything about them and their lives and things, and just how it is quite easy to get down these tracks. And I think that the sort of the effect can be of that is that it can end up leaving us like, firstly we're sort of getting caught up in these like fixed views of things, and interpretations of things really, like we don't know the objective facts. These narratives we get caught up in are just stories, they're just like things that are based, as we could see with the example of the two people late for the meeting. It wasn't objective facts, it was things based on my previous experiences of them, and all my mood on the day, all these other factors that take us away from what's actually happening, and takes us away from our connection with people as well, and sort of can leave us feeling very cut off from things. And so I think so. Yeah, I certainly was quite keen to sort of like to study and read the book, and to see like what responses, what other ways there might be where we could respond to praise and blame that might be in a more helpful way. And I think what comes out from the teachings of the Buddha and everything, as with the other worldly winds, is that if we attach our happiness to like seeking out praise and avoiding blame, then it's only going to lead to disappointment and suffering, because it's not something we can avoid, it's just something that happens to all of us at times. And it's not something that we can control or predict. Whatever we might do, at times we're going to get praised, and at other times we'll get blamed, and sometimes it could be for the very same thing. And so what we can do is try and find ways to respond to it more creatively, so that we're blown like less off course with it. And so like something which Vajragupta like sort of suggested that might be helpful in thinking about responding to praise and blame is like truthfulness. And that he thought that there's a real opportunity when we notice praise and blame, just to sort of like respond more creatively by thinking how we can relate to it and reflect on it in a more truthful way. And I thought there were like 3 different ways in which we could like sort of respond to praise and blame with truthfulness. So the first way I thought of was simply in our communication and being more truthful. And personally, I find that even if it feels a bit difficult, I think if we can be truthful, when we're meeting blame and everything, then there's something very freeing about that, about taking responsibility for our actions. And I think part of what's freeing is that I think our instincts can be like to do the opposite and to try and conceal things. It can feel quite hard to, admit to things that we've done wrong when we are being blamed. I have this example, and it's a bit shameful, but I emphasise this from over 25 years ago, and it was when I was quite young. I was a student, and I was living in like a shared house. And at the time, I sort of used to dye my hair black. And, once I had dyed my hair and I'd gone out and I hadn't been particularly mindful about how I'd left the place. And when I come back, somebody else, another student in the house who I didn't know that well, but I didn't have that easy relationship with, she like sort of marched up to me and she was saying, like, have you seen the state of the bathroom upstairs? It's covered in black hair dye. I don't know how we're going to get it out. And then she sort of looked very pointedly at my like newly dyed black hair. And in that moment, I don't know what I was thinking of. I just said, really? I said, oh, well, it wasn't me. And she looked again at my like newly dyed hair. And I had this done in the hairdressers. And I ran off. And as soon as I got to my room, I thought, what have I done? Like, firstly, it's a really wrong thing to do. And secondly, I could almost see this future ahead of me where I was going to have to spend the rest of the year like avoiding her or feeling shameful because I'd lied. And so I went back to her and everything and knocked on her door and said, look, I don't know what I was thinking of. Of course it was me. I did the hair dye. I wasn't noticing how I left the bathroom. I'm really sorry. I'll do my best to clean it up. And instantly something lifted. And she like said then, no, she said, sorry. She said, I thought afterwards, and I come up and accused you, and that wasn't great. And actually something really changed in my relationship with her after that. It was something just loosened up. So I've always really held on to that. And I think it's given me the courage where, if I have done things wrong, to try and, to speak up and own it. And, I think that can be a very freeing thing to do. And then like sort of other ways in which we can like sort of be more truthful are like in reflections and meditations. So if there's a time when we're being praised or blamed, I think it can be really helpful just to reflect on like, what is the truth in this situation? Because I think the sort of the part of the winds that can sort of pull us off course with praise and blame is that we can like sort of appropriate whatever's happened all to ourselves. And so if we praise ourselves, then, that can inflate our ego because we can think like, oh, it's all me, you see what I mean? And that if we blame ourselves again, we can sort of really sink into this panic and depression like it's all me, it's totally my fault. Whereas the reality, the truth in that, if you like, is that, things are like rarely, if ever, just down to us. They're sort of like in Buddhism, we believe that things like, in the world, conditioned things are the result of all these other like massive like web of conditions arising and ceasing and coming together. And if we use that to think of like praise and blame, with any instance, we can think of like all the different conditions that had to come together for an act to exist, whether it's an act of praise or of blame. There was this talk I was reading on praise and blame by an order member in Cambridge, Shubhanaga, and he talked about the conditionality using like the image of a rainbow. So for a rainbow to arise, you need there to be moisture in the air from where there's been rain, you need there to be sunlight, you need to be standing in the right position to see it. And if all these conditions aren't there at the same time, then you don't get a rainbow, or it ceases. And and I find it really helpful to reflect on that in an instance of praise or blame, because it helps me see that it's not all about me, that it's come about through all these other conditions, and that can help me relate to it differently. And then like lastly, I think it can be helpful like to think of truthfulness in meditation just by like relating differently to these narratives we can create in our head. Like when like feelings of praise and blame come up, then we can easily get caught up in these stories about it that sort of take us away from the direct experience. And as we've seen earlier, aren't based on objective like sort of truths. They're just like, our interpretations of things. So what I'm trying to do is when I find myself thinking about praise and blame when I'm meditating, is just to, try and, acknowledge these stories, but not to get carried away with them, to come back to the feelings in my body and just like focus on those. And you know, I find that sort of like helps like sort of free up those like that sort of experiences. Then find that if you don't hang on to them, if you don't like fuel them with the thoughts, then they're more likely to pass then. So those are like a couple of thoughts, like very much like sort of drawn from like sort of Vajragupta's like sort of take on praise and blame, and truthfulness being a sort of different response to it. So I thought what might be helpful to do now is to sort of do a practice. I thought we could start off with like a brief like sort of reflection on praise and blame and how we might experience that, and then to follow that up then by a period of the metta bhavana, because I also think that metta is a really like sort of good like response to praise and blame too, because in the metta bhavana we're trying to cultivate loving kindness for all beings, including ourselves, regardless of, you know, whatever winds might be like sort of blowing around us. You know, metta in a way is our response, where we don't get blown, of course, by the winds. We're just trying to cultivate that loving kindness for everybody. Okay. So let's start off then by finding a posture that's upright enough so that it helps us stay awake this time of evening without a sense of straining, and has a sense of ease, but not so full of ease that we find ourselves slumping. So trying to achieve that balance that helps prepare us for meditation, the intention to be alert and present, but also at ease. And closing our eyes if that feels comfortable too. And coming back again to the sensations of the body. And the breath moving in and out of the body. And allowing our awareness to particularly sit in the heart centre, the area of the body we imagine our heart to be. Noticing the sensations here. And allowing our heart centre just to open up a little bit more with each in-breath and out-breath. And as we begin, a few reflections on praise and blame. Just going to drop these reflections into the heart centre, like pebbles gently being dropped into a pool. It really doesn't matter at all, whatever response we get. It's just about noticing it, using it as an opportunity to understand ourselves better, and bringing kindness as best we can to whatever emerges. So call into mind now, as best we can, a recent example where you experience praise. Anything that comes to your mind, where somebody expressed praise to you. Just noticing what feelings are associated with that. Where can you feel it in the body? And allowing your awareness to drop down to that place. Just noticing what characteristics that feeling has. What temperature does the feeling feel like? their warmth or coolness. What texture does the feeling have? Is it moving or still? Just noticing all the different bundles of sensations associated with the feeling of being praised. Noticing if there are other feelings coming up for you as well. Are any feelings of looking for the praise, trying to grasp onto it? So, what are those feelings like? Where do you feel that? Whatever comes up is absolutely fine. Just acknowledging it as best we can, accepting it as part of our experience. And if we notice ourselves getting caught up in any narratives, any stories about what's happening, and simply coming back again to the feelings in the body. And then just asking yourself, what would it be like not to be blown around by praise? What would it be like simply to experience it without searching for it or clinging on to it? Just to dwell in the feeling of praise and then let it go as it naturally passes. So now, letting the focus on praise fade away, and calling to mind now the time when you felt blamed recently, and choosing a time where your feelings associated with this aren't really strong, but a time where you've felt some but not too much blame. Noticing where you experience that in the body. Noticing how that feeling feels, temperature, texture, any movement or other sensations associated with the feeling of blame, any tightness, and allowing that to be. Just taking the opportunity to explore that. And if you notice any other feelings coming alongside that, like anger perhaps, or resentment, and exploring those feelings too, not needing to analyse them, just noticing what they feel like. And if you notice yourself getting caught up in any stories or thoughts about the experience of blame, and again just coming back to the experience in your body and breathing in and out with it. And asking yourself, what would it be like not to get caught up in feelings of blame, not to try and push them away or avoid them? What would it be like to simply experience the feelings and then let them go as they pass away? Then letting the experience of blame fade away and coming back to the awareness from the heart center. As we end the reflection and begin the period of the Metta Bhavana. So in the first stage of the Metta Bhavana, keeping our awareness upon ourselves and letting go now of any thoughts or feelings associated with remembering praise and blame. And simply wishing yourself well, regardless of that, regardless of any aspect of your experience, trying to meet everything with kindness towards yourself. Saying to yourself, may I be well, may I be happy, may I find peace. Wishing yourself well as best you can in a kindly tone of voice in your mind. Just noticing any response that occurs. And if you get caught up in thoughts, stories, then again simply coming back to the feelings in your body and wishing yourself well. Now bringing to mind a good friend, someone who is easy to cultivate feelings of kindness towards, and wishing them well. Imagining yourself saying to them in a kindly tone, may you be well, may you be happy, may you find peace. Slightly dropping in the well wishes, like pebbles in a pool, and noticing your response. Reminding yourself that whatever your response is okay. accepting it as part of your experience. And bring into mind now a stranger or an acquaintance that you barely know. So someone you see as a background figure in your life, perhaps somebody who serves you in the shop, you see on your daily commute, or walking past your window, but who you don't know to speak to, probably might not know their name. I'm wishing them well. May you be happy. May you be well. May you find peace. If you notice your mind drifting off, getting caught up in thoughts, and simply acknowledging that and coming back again to your focus on this stranger or acquaintance and wishing them well. And call into mind now someone who you have some kind of difficulty with. So again, it's probably better not to call to mind somebody who there's been a major difficulty with, someone who is associated with pain, but somebody who you've had some kind of tension with, or disagreement. Just noticing your response as you call them to mind. If calling to mind feels difficult, then bringing kindness to yourself too. And as best you can, wishing this person well. May you be well. May you be happy. May you find peace. Noticing if you're caught up in stories or narratives or thoughts, and coming back as best you can to sitting and breathing and wishing this person well. Now calling to mind all the people you've brought to mind in the practice so far, to yourself, good friend, a stranger, and the person you find difficult. And as best you can, wishing them all well equally, just as the sun shines down upon us all equally, without judgment or difference. May we all be well. May we all be happy. May we all find peace. And imagining the field of our awareness just becoming broader and broader, and allowing your well wishes, your loving kindness, just to also get broader and broader and feel that space and reach more and more people. Just the people in your flat or house or street, wishing them all well and allowing your kindness to flow out further and further in all directions, touching everyone who comes within your field of awareness. And now coming back to the body, sitting here and breathing, just allowing yourself a few moments to absorb the effects of the practice, whatever they may be. And preparing to bring the practice to an end when you hear the bell.
So thank you so much, Lisa, for some beautiful and very authentic reflections on this whole rich area of praise and blame. I think maybe you didn't mention that sometimes it's hard to receive praise as well, as long, as well as blame. I hate to be blamed along with most people, but I hope you'll hear this praise. I'm sure other people are really feeling grateful and appreciative of your class tonight. So thank you so much, Lisa. And so just wanted to mention a few things. I hope you've enjoyed tuning in either tonight or on this recording. And if you feel you benefited, we hope you consider making a contribution. We're a community basically of friends who practice together and want to offer the Buddhist teachings on meditation and practice to others. And we need financial and other support in order to be able to continue to do this. Most of us do this on a volunteer basis, but we need money for rent, equipment, other things. So, while these classes are free, we'd ask you to consider making £10 donations if you're waged. So, £5 if unwaged. And or whatever you feel up to, less or more than that. And just a few announcements of other things on offer. We have Wednesday night Dharma night, so Dharma being the teaching of the Buddha in that context. And we, at the moment, we're doing this on a recording basis. We're hoping to open this up to people as the spring progresses. And but in the meantime, please check for our recordings. The theme right now is the many facets of the jewel of the Buddha. So we're looking at the three jewels of Buddhism. So the Buddha, the Dharma, his teachings, and the Sangha, his community of followers. But at the moment we're focusing on the many dimensions of the Buddha throughout time and legend and many, many teachings. And then coming up in April is a really very interesting sounding course called The Evolving Mind. So exploring consciousness and the mind in relation to the Buddha's teachings, but also in relation to what's known scientifically about the mind. And you can find details about that course, which will be on a Tuesday night on our website. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you'll tune in to our Zoom discussion lounge, which will be starting in a couple of minutes.